extending the life.
Well, it is, but what I would say. Good evening, board members and residents. I'd like to call to order our regular board meeting for Monday, September 28th, 2015. And I'd ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Batanti.
Here.
Mr. Brado is asked to be excused. Mr. Capral.
Here.
Mr. Tominello.
Here.
Mr. York is asked to be excused. Mr. Witt here. Mr. Verkust.
Here. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, including approval of the regular board meeting minutes of September 14th, 2015, and Board of Trustee and Planning Commission joint workshop minutes from September 17th, 2015, approval of the bills in the amount of $785,107.21, approval of the August 2015 Revenue and Expenditure Report, approval of the Knights of Columbus Annual Tootsie Roll Drive, October 9th through 11th, 2015, and approval to purchase Discount HCMA 2016 Annual Park Stickers to sell to Harrison Township residents. Be looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Support?
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Batanti, with support by Mr. Tominello to approve the consent agenda, including the bills in the amount of $785,107.21. Any discussion, board members?
Just as a note to the residents, the 2016 park stickers are already available at the beach, so as soon as we get a check, we'll have them at the office. So.
Yeah. Well, obviously, they're still good for this year as well.
Still good for this year as well. So if you procrastinated and want to go out this year, 16 works.
Yep, it paid to wait. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next is the approval of the regular agenda. Mr. Witt, you had an additional item that you proposed for B4?
Yes, I'd be requesting that the board add an item to, for approval to post advertise an interview for the finance director's position due to upcoming retirement.
All right. So the request is for one additional item for item B4. If there's no other amendments, then I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved. Support.
Motion by Mr. Capro, support by Mr. Batanti to approve the amended agenda. Discussion, board members. Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next is board and supervisor announcements. A few announcements here. The Rizzo Rewards Recycling Program has begun. This program delivers savings to active recyclers. Simply log in to www.rizzorewards.com, enter your address, select your name from the data provided, and follow the instructions to complete the setup of this free account. Each time you recycle, you're given access to hundreds of valuable savings certificates from local and national businesses. You can check your recycling status at any time and get great rewards just for going green. Once Rizzo is aware your household is actively recycling and self-reporting, the savings certificates and prizes are available for you to print from your home computer. It doesn't matter if you use the large wheeled recycling cart or just the 18-gallon recycling bin. You can, in either case, take advantage of the Rizzo Rewards for Recycling program. The Harrison Township Beautification Committee will be hosting a trunk plant exchange this Saturday, October 3rd from 10 a.m. to noon at Tucker Park. Bring your labeled bare root plants, grab a parking space, and exchange plants. State Representative Anthony Ferlini will be hosting a community shred day on Friday, October 16th from 9 till 11 a.m. at the Harrison Township Senior Center. This is one way to avoid identity theft and dispose of old documents safely. Shredding is free for up to 2 standard bags or boxes per person. If you need additional information, you can contact Representative Forlini at 888-DIST-024 or Anthony Forlini at house.mi.gov. The Macomb County Sheriff's Office is hosting a Law Enforcement Academy for senior citizens. This 4-week series of classes will educate seniors about the operations of the Macomb County Sheriff's Office and its different divisions. This is a free program, but registration is required. You can call the Macomb County Sheriff's Office at 586-307-9311. For information on all of these township events and for other township activities, you can call the supervisor's office, 586-466-1445, or of course visit the website harrison-township.org. Are there any other announcements?
There are a couple of Parks and Rec announcements. First one is we have our annual Hollowpalooza Trunk or Treat event, which is October 24th. It's held at Tucker Park. It starts at 5 o'clock and goes to 7 p.m. And basically, it's a trunk or treat event. Bring treats to pass to other trick-or-treaters. And we have games for the younger kids, and I'd like to see everybody out there. It's completely free, so please come on out. Secondly, we have our Parks and Rec Bowling League, which starts October 10th. It's a Saturday morning bowling league for youth. It's held at Total Sports, and it's a 12-week league. For more details, please see the township website. There'll be a flyer on the website. And you can contact Total Sports as well. They'll help you. They understand exactly what the program is.
All right, great. Thanks for your efforts in the Parks and Rec department there. Any other announcements? Hearing none, we'll move to item B1 from the clerk's office. Mr. Witt?
Yes, before us we have a project that's actually already completed and built out for the sediment removal from Sunnybrook that was done 2 years ago. But in going through the audit, the auditors had recommended that we amend the original resolution number 5 to reflect the total cost at the end of the project, just so they match the records. I spoke with Mr. Huth just to make sure we were doing everything on the up and up, and he just said the board can just adopt this resolution. It reflects the actual costs that were incurred. These have already been billed out to individuals. Some people have already paid them off, and going through that right now. So.
All right. Any questions on the item, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the amended resolution number 5 for Siesta Park, Sunnybrook Park, and Fresh Air Park Canals Aquatic Sediment Removal SAD project as presented.
Got a motion by Mr. Witt. Is there support? Support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Batanti?
Yes.
Mr. Brado is excused. Mr. Capral?
Yes.
Mr. York is excused. Mr. Verkust?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
All right. Next on the agenda is item B2. And it looks like B2 and B3 may be together.
B2 and B3 are together.
Yep. Mr. Witt?
It's, we have before us tonight a proposed special assessment district for the south end of Cherry Lane, Church Street, Bakeman Street, and Mass Court Road. The residents have been interested for a while now, and we started meeting with them last year to go over some possibilities for repaving the road. This is a private road, so they went out and got their own pricing from an engineer to do some engineering work for the project. They got estimates from several paving contractors to repave the road. What they're looking at doing is reshaping the existing road that's there, putting a 2.5-inch base, and then putting 1.5 inches of asphalt on top. The signed petitions have been reviewed and checked. based on our calculations and reviewed by the engineer, we had 59.5% of the property interested. Lake St. Clair Metro Park was, even though they border the road, they were excluded from the project, because the residents felt they wouldn't be paying for it, and they wouldn't benefit from it. Their access to the road is further down, outside of this district. The first resolution is resolution number 1, which accepts the petitions and directs the engineer to prepare the improvement plans. Our township engineer will work with the company that they wish to hire to make sure the road's being done properly and all the bid specs and that kind of stuff are good. Resolution number 2 would set the date for the public hearing, which is called the public hearing of necessity. At this time, residents are allowed to come up and speak for or against the project. And ultimately, it's this board's decision as to whether or not we move forward with this project. So maybe one other thing that Mr. Newmer pointed out, township engineer, is our township standards for private roads when they're installed is cement curb, asphalt that meets the county's specifications, and improved drainage, all that kind of stuff that goes with it. It's more so written with a new road in mind.
Basically new construction.
New
It's more
construction,
Planning
yeah.
and development.
Yeah, or doing a condo or something like that, where they're coming in and, putting something in for the first time. So the board would ultimately be waiving some of those requirements, because right now it's a dirt road, and it would be cost prohibitive for them to go through and meet some of those standards. It's gonna stay a private road after this. So they're ultimately looking just to improve it. There's only 37 properties that drive over it, so it doesn't get some of the wear and tear that maybe a more public road or busy road could get, and in the end, it'll really help some of these properties. The road at times gets really torn up because they don't have any formal homeowners association that can take on some of that annual maintenance and that kind of stuff for grading. I know in the past there's been homeowners who maybe brings their backhoe out and drop some gravel and will scrape it, but it's only good if the guy's willing to do it.
So there's a need to separately adopt each resolution?
Each resolution separately.
And the issue that referred to the public comment section?
That's just setting up a public hearing date for our next meeting. Our goal is to have it at our next meeting, October 13th, 2015.
Okay, so while we'll certainly accept public comments
do
for these
accept-
motions,
Yeah.
the ultimately, the public hearing is likely to be held at next meeting.
Yeah, that's
2
our
weeks.
goal. What we'll do is we notice it in the paper twice, and we also send letters to the property owners so that they're informed. The public hearing is their opportunity to protest the appeal and protest the special assessment. And it's the only way they can take it to the state tax tribunal to appeal the assessment. So it's important, if anybody is against it or is planning to appeal it, that they attend that meeting.
And then, based on verified signatures, currently, just short of 60% of property owners, not including the Metro Parks,
Correct.
have said that this is something they want.
Yeah, and we did have 2 owners who had came in after the petitions had been signed and submitted, and they said they were no longer in favor of it, but the way the special assessment law is written is that once your signature's on there, it's a legal document, it's on there. But even if you were to remove those signatures, they're still over the 50 plus 1% threshold. I think the number is right around 55 at that point. So
With 2 less signatures.
even if you took out 2 less properties with valid signatures, they're still over that mark. So
Gotcha. Okay.
it'd be hard to move forward if 12 people came back and said, we don't want it, because, this project isn't something that the township initiated, it's what the residents want, so we're really facilitating for the residents.
Right, kind of acting as a bit of a fiduciary.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and just so the board knows, the scope of the project is right around, I want to say the total cost was like $120,000. And ultimately, the goal would be to finance that through the general fund, as opposed to bonding that out. That'll help with some of the cost for residents, so.
And the price per is by lot and not by footage at this point.
Correct, it's by lot.
Okay. Okay,
So-
did you
Yeah,
have a
I'm
question?
just curious. So it's $5,713 per lot.
Yep.
So becomes a special assessment over some period of time. Is that included in this, or?
That is not included in this. Normally what we do is 5 or 10 years for financing, and there'll be a separate item where we actually set the assessment against the property, and it'll spell out the interest rate that we'll charge, and, you know, that period in which they have to pay back.
Okay, and that will be, Mr. Witt, that will be set up before the public hearing, so the residents have an opportunity, would understand what the expectation was?
Well, they have an understanding of the total cost, and we've gone through some of the items as far as the 5-year, and I don't have the number in front of me, but I think it was a 5-year payback, so, at 5% interest, so.
Okay,
And, part of what the residents are paying for in here is some, extended warranty work for the road. When they bid it out, they had the contractor bid a price to come back and do some of that warranty work. Again, because they don't have that formal homeowners association to come back later and do that work, that's included in this for, I wanna say years 2 through 5, and then an additional 5 years after that, so.
Right, they show a maintenance schedule, year 1, year 2 through 5, 6 through 10. So the cost for that maintenance is included in the special assessment.
Correct.
So conceivably, you might consider that if the contractor is willing to say that they'll provide maintenance over a 10-year period, presumably the road has a life pretty close to 10 years, but you don't necessarily want to put that special assessment for the total life,
I
right?
understand.
So,
Yeah, and so we'll, you know, that,
So
there's
it's likely 5 years?
we actually have, yeah,
Okay,
and we'll have there's a second public hearing that happens later that actually is the individual's time, again, to speak towards the assessment on their own property and that kind of stuff, so.
thank you.
but if, say, for example, if the homeowner said, well, we'd like 4 years or 6 years, there's some flexibility there that
Right.
the board has.
And
And
this,
some folks pay right off the bat.
yeah, some people will say, you know, I have a really good relationship with my bank, I can get a really good rate there, so I'd rather pull a home equity loan and
Understood.
pay for it there instead of at the
Okay.
township.
Thank you.
I also know that as a general statement, the work that's being proposed here isn't to the standard that the county would require for some of the public roads. On behalf of some of the residents on other sections of Cherry Lane that happen to be public, I did reach out to the Department of Roads, and because of the nature of Cherry Lane, because of the traffic that it carries, is kind of just isolated to the folks on that street. The highway engineer for the county did acknowledge that, you know, similar to what they might allow in some rural parts of the county, they would accept, you know, a lower standard of paving even on a public portion of the road, recognizing that while it might not be to the standard that they would require for a thoroughfare or collector road, since it carries local traffic and the residents are financing the cost of the repairs, you know, they would look at an alternative method which would be less than the county standard. So the potential exists that the county, even though it isn't the county standard, that the county would accept this level of paving even on the public portion, with the understanding that it won't have the same lifespan that it would if it were a public road, and basically the failure mode is it reverts back to a gravel road.
And we did include, you know, some contingency costs within there, so if the project doesn't come out for whatever reason, we don't use that. You know, we only bill the residents what costs we actually incur, so, and I apologize, the cost is 200, just over 210,000.
That's what I thought, yeah.
I did my math
57.
wrong in my head, so,
That's right. I did the 37 times 57, I was
Yeah.
getting 2.
yeah.
But that's cool.
It's in the picture.
Yeah. All right. Is there more discussion or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the foregoing resolution number 1 for Cherry Lane, Church Street, Bakeman Street, and Mass Court Road Improvement SAD project as presented.
Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Tominello. And we'll address each of these individually?
Yes.
Yep, okay. All right, we have a motion was seconded to adopt the foregoing resolution number 1. We've had a fair amount of discussion, so I'll open up the floor for public comment.
Yes. William Bardell, 18-year resident, 37-year skilled tradesman. The only thing I wanted to say real quick for food for thought is, if you use less than 4 inches of 21 AA, all these people are wasting their money. You gotta have at least 4 inches of 21 AA. Anyone that's got any experience, and I'm not sure if you said 2 or 4. I looked on the board packet, but anyway, just want to say that. And the other thing I want to say is, you got to go by the footage. And I said this last year, I don't know if this was the same assessment. You don't go by the lots. You go by the footage. And you know that's the right thing to do. And the only thing I can say is, you get a guy with a 180-foot corner lot who's on a corner lot that's got 180 foot of frontage, and you got a senior citizen with a 37-foot lot, and they're paying the same thing. I just ask you, what would the Pope say about that? You know, you all, everyone knows here you go by the footage. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. So, if there's one lady that's got a 37-foot lot, and you got a guy with a 180-foot lot, then I think you should figure out what the difference is for this one lady that's got a 37-foot lot, and everyone in this area get assessed and make up the difference for what this lady should be paying and what she shouldn't be paying. I don't think it's fair, and as trustees and as working for the township as a public service, you need to stick up for this person and go by the foot, and you know that's the right thing to do. Again, what would the Pope say? Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. So I know that there's a lot of different ways that you can split up the cost of road repair. Certainly, someone who might live at the end of the road is likely to utilize all of the road, and someone who lives at the beginning of the road utilizes a shorter portion. But ultimately, for this SAD, who determined the split? Was it the residents or the clerk's office?
We presented we presented some of those options to the residents, the method that they had chosen, and that's what's great about this process is they get to choose how they do it, is through a per lot basis. And the thinking behind that is a standard single family home utilizes the road the same amount as a standard any other standard single family home. And all the homes are very similar, so there's not like a multi-family unit out there or something like that. So what you have is, you know, it's like I think the average is a 2 1/4 cars or something like that the planners use, and whether you have 100 feet or 300 feet, you still have that same amount of car traffic that's developed by that lot. So that's why that per lot cost is used as opposed to a per linear foot in this method. So,
But I think
both are appropriate ways to assess the cost, but ultimately it's their choice.
I think that's the important part. This is a process that's driven by the residents. They come in, they request the petition, they define the language, they circulate the petitions, and then bring them back.
Yep.
So for this board to say to a group of folks that have made a conscious decision to do a project in a certain way and say, well, no, we usurp your independent rights, and instead we believe something should be assessed another way, I think that's an injustice. I understand there's more than one way to look at it, and I respect that, but if the residents came to us and said we'd like to do it by footage, I don't think we have the right to say, no, we disagree, it should be by lot. I think that's something that the residents are empowered to decide, and I respect that right. And if a group of folks feel differently, there's a process for protesting that too. These are not procedures that we define. These are dictated by the state of Michigan. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Tominello to adopt the foregoing resolution number 1 for Cherry Lane, Church Street, Bakeman Street, and Mast Court Road improvements SAD project as presented. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Batanti?
Yes.
Mr. Brado is excused. Mr. Capral?
Yes.
Mr. York is excused. Mr. Verkest?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
And then we have resolution number 2, and I know you discussed that a little bit, but
Again, it's just it sets the first public hearing for the project, and again, that'd be October 13th, 2015. Tomorrow morning, our office will contact Macomb Daily and the Journal and get notices in the paper and get letters out to the concerned property owners, so.
all right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the foregoing resolution number 2 for Cherry Lane, Church Street, Bakeman Street, and Mast Court Road Improvement SAD project as presented.
Is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Capral. And again, I know we discussed this at length. Is there further discussion? Well, so what we'll do is, we'll open up the floor for public comment now, and and you can come on up, anytime.
I'm not sure. I'm new to this, so.
No problem.
If I'm doing it wrong, then just tell me.
No, you're fine.
With the project that you just mentioned, you did mention earlier that the Harrison Township engineer is gonna be working with the project and getting everything done. How many man hours is that, and who's paying for his time to do all that? Because that sounds quite like a lengthy project, and if he's gonna be utilized for private matter, is that project gonna be paying for that time of his as well, or do we, the taxpayers, have to eat that?
That's a fair question. Typically what we do is we open the floor for public comment. We'll take any questions, and then we close the floor for public comment because we don't necessarily engage in a back and forth communication.
Okay.
So that question is noted, and if there's other questions you have, we
Oh,
can
is
jot
that
them
how it
down.
works? Okay.
Yeah,
Alrighty.
so that's a fair question.
Okay, so that was it really. I just wanna know how that money was gonna be spent for, because I mean, if we're paying for him, if Harrison Township's providing people, who's paying for private matter? Who's paying that salary for him?
Yep, and I think if
I do Manning, so I'm like.
if it's okay with the board, I think we can answer that question.
Sure. On any of these projects, we bill back the cost to the township to the project itself.
Oh,
So
you
it gets
do?
rolled into that special assessment. So we incur costs in the clerk's office from printing, mailing, notices,
Right.
the engineer's time, even in advance of even in advance of getting to here, we've already incurred some cost. So we bill that all back to the project.
Okay, so that's on top of that $100-some thousand
It's
dollars?
included in that amount.
It's
Oh, it
in-
was included?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we
So-
include
I
a-
didn't know it was
We
included.
include a contingency and an administrative fee in there, and we only bill out to the residents what we actually incur. So we have a placeholder of around 15% in there to cover some contingency and those administrative costs, so.
So as a general rule, say, for example, if Mr. Witt is working on something, his salary is covered by the general fund, there's no additional cost. But if we were to contract with our township engineer and pay something extra, or do a mailing or a newspaper ad, those are extra costs, those are treated, those go to this project and they're borne by the residents.
Super, okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
William Bardell, 18-year resident. What I want to say is, when you have a larger lot, you pay more taxes. So you get 100 people using your road. That's not the point. The point is, you are assessed with higher taxes when you have a larger lot. If you have a 90-foot lot, your taxes are higher generally than a person with a 37-foot lot, how wide it is. Goes by the square footage of the lot. Now, your road frontage, this should be figured the same way, and it always is figured the same way. I don't know if who's ever doing this job number cannot break it down, but you can break that down to footage, and I think it would be fair, and I think as trustees and as public officials serving the public, that is the way to do it. You pay more, you have a larger lot, your taxes are higher. You have a larger lot, your road assessment's higher. That's not that difficult. breaking it down to lot is not, you know it's not fair, and you guys all know it's not fair. Please do it the right way, and again, if you don't have 4 inches of 21 AA underneath the road, you're wasting your money. At least 4 inches, not 2 inches. I don't remember if it was 2 or 4. If it's 4, it's okay. If it's 2, you're wasting your money on the road. But I will say this, the more footage you have, the more you're assessed. It's not that difficult. You don't go by the lot, you go by the footage. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. I think we addressed the issue relative to footage. Certainly, Mr. Witt said he presented those options to the residents. I think it's also important to understand that the amount of base and the amount of asphalt that's laid is a variable. And certainly the greater the base and the greater the amount of asphalt, the greater the cost and the more, I guess, the longer durability that the road has. This is not the same standard that the county would require for most public roads to be paved. It's not the standard that the township would require a developer to do for a new project where they're building a new road. So it's a lower cost option and it's a lower quality option. And again, I can't stress enough, this board is not in a position to tell residents what they should do on a private road any more than I should tell you whether you should have a brick paver driveway, a concrete driveway, or a limestone gravel driveway. Those are the residents' dollars, and it's their choice. This is something, a cost that's being borne by the residents, and if they want to triple this cost, they could pour a nicer road. Maybe a concrete road might be 5 times the cost. I'm not in a position to say those numbers, but I know it would be more. And they could add a lot of drainage in, and they could have a boulevard down the middle, but these are not choices that this board is empowered to make. This has been driven by the residents. This is what they've asked for. I can tell you, I recognize several of the names in here. These folks have been calling us as long as I've been supervisor, trying to figure out a way to get this done. And I think with the rebound in the economy, enough of the residents feel like it's a cost they can bear, and that's, I believe, why it's before us now.
And just further, you know, the frontage doesn't always reflect the value of the property, especially if you look in this neighborhood, you have some 40-foot lots that are on the lake as opposed to a 75-foot lot that's on a canal. That 40-foot lot's gonna pay more in taxes than a 75-foot on the canal. Not the same. Tax value does not equate to cost for a road, so it's a flawed method to think for this type of project.
But I could understand, I think, if the residents came to us and said, we think footage is the way to go, I would respect that. I just don't believe that I'm in a position to tell folks that they've chosen to do something wrong. I think this is a pretty easily understood thing. I think the residents are informed, and so. Any other comment? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Capral to adopt foregoing resolution number 2 for Cherry Lane, Church Street, Bakeman Street, and Mast Court Road Improvements SAD project as presented. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Capral?
Yes.
Mr. Batanti?
Yes.
Mr. Brado is excused. Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. York is excused. Mr. Verkust?
Yes. All right. Next on our agenda is item B4. This was an addendum to the agenda, and Mr. Witt alluded to it earlier, but Mr. Witt?
Yes. I've been, our finance director, Mr. Glenn Spencer, his contract expires at the end of the year. I had been in conversation with him throughout the year, trying to figure out whether we needed to sit down and negotiate a new contract or what he would like to do. He had told me that he needed to talk about it with his family, and he'd make a decision by the end of September. He came to me on Friday and informed me that he's going to be retiring at the end of the year. We're definitely going to be sad to see him go. He's really been a rock in the accounting department that we've all leaned on for information. But we need to start the process of filling that very important position for the township. So that's why I felt I needed to bring it tonight. So we had the opportunity to get that posting out there, begin that advertising process to get applications back and start interviews. So I know I've spoken with the supervisor's office, and I've spoken with the treasurer's office. And I know we want to do some updating to the job description just to reflect the duties that Mr. Spencer's done. It's been, I mean, he's been in that position for about 8 years, I think. There's just some things to update to modernize it. So we'll be doing that, and our goal is to post it on both the Michigan Municipal League and the Government Finance Officers Association website. They both have job boards, so we hope we'll be able to pull qualified candidates from one of those two sites. So.
Make a motion to update the financial director's job description and subsequently post for the job within the timelines of the 3 full-time officials.
And then I'll just say obviously with a recommendation to come back before the board.
As always, thank you, Mr. Rupes.
Yep. Motion by Mr. Tominello. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Caprow. All right, well, at this point, we're really just interviewing. I don't know if there is a lot of discussion. We just want to get the process started. I think it's important to note, Mr. Spencer has indicated a willingness after his retirement to be able to come back on some temporary basis to assist with some of the different tasks that might have come up through the year, so that's good news. Until we know what we have in place, I really can't bring some proposal for that, but presumably we'll come back before the board for some permission to have temporary employment throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, and if we get to the end of the year and we don't have a candidate in place, we'll probably be looking for some month-to-month contract until we get that individual in, so.
I have a question.
Yes.
When we actually post the position, will it be posted with an exact salary, a range? What's the intent?
We usually put a range out there. It's sort of been pegged at a rate for a long time. Mr. Spencer's been really good about saying, you know, I don't need a raise.
Understood.
But we'll review with comparables just to see if we're in the range. But I believe we are. But ultimately, that decision as far as negotiating a contract is going to come back to this board.
Well, I guess that's all I would ask, is that I agree it's a very important position. I would just like to somehow be aware of what range we post out there before we do that. That's all I would ask. If we can figure out a way to do that.
Yeah, and we can send out a copy of the
Okay.
posting before it goes out. But I mean, I could,
Appreciate that.
off the top of my head, I know Mr. Spencer's pay is just over $70,000 currently.
Okay.
And it's been that way for a while. So.
Yeah, it's been probably, if not his entire tenure here, definitely the last.
Yeah, he's foregone
years.
some raises that were
Right.
built into his contract, so that's probably a starting point. But it,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah, it's likely to be greater than that. I would say just based on the fact, I don't think we anticipated, it, like Mr. Wett said, the contract had in it escalators, I think a 2% escalator. And during some of the leaner years, we went to Mr. Spencer and he agreed to renew his contract without that escalator, not unlike what we talked about the last few meetings. But I do believe we reached a point where we didn't expect to renew that contract without some escalator. And depending on the experience level that we might hire, you know, we may have to include that in the description. But I don't see it as something that's gonna be, 30% higher.
Okay.
But it could be, a single-digit % higher is what I'd guess.
I just think it would be more comfortable if I saw whatever range we were going to advertise.
Sure.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this came up rather fast for us,
Sure.
of course, because we didn't,
Understood.
certainly
Important.
didn't want to put it on the agenda before we heard from him and show that disrespect to the guy, so.
No, I think it's a critical position. We need to get moving on it.
All right, any more discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, we have a motion to update the job description for the finance director and direct the three full-time officials to advertise and interview for the position with a recommendation to come back before the board at a later date. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next on the agenda is public comments. The floor is open. Comments can be about any subject, and we ask you to limit your comments to 5 minutes.
William Bardell, 18-year resident. You may have heard about the city's receiving $4.5 million for the river projects along the Clinton River, all such as planting flowers that are native to the area and so forth. It's 4.5 million, but I want to let everybody know that they're still dumping in Lake St. Clair and the Clinton River. So this 4.5 million, I understand, they're gonna have zip lines across the Clinton River, boat rentals, and that's all fine and dandy, but that's like detailing out a boat when your bilge pump in your boat don't work and your boat's sinking. I mean, I can give you some examples of some of the dumping. Oakland County dumped 37.97 million gallons of sewage into the Red Run Drain, which goes into the Clinton River, which goes into Lake St. Clair, and I got a whole list of them. Those are available for the Department of Environmental Quality. If you go to michigan.gov and you can search for that, Department of Environmental Quality. Also, I'd like to let everybody know that I'd like everyone to go to SaveLakeSt. SaveLakeSt, and look under the facts. You don't have to donate money if you don't have to. It's about getting the facts and making our paid politicians work for the people and protect our lake. There's going to be a meeting tonight, and I've got a flyer back there. If you don't know where the current Food and Libations is in St. Clair Shores, that's on the northeast corner of 9 Mile and Jefferson. There's going to be a meeting there for Save Lake St. Clair, and we're going to be putting together getting permits and putting together some informational pickets on the municipalities, not blocking driveways, getting permits, doing it legally, on these municipalities that are dumping into our lake. We want a blue water economy, we want all this stuff, but they're still dumping in our lake. They're saying that the water is processed. It's not processed. Sometimes it is, most of the time it's not. You're getting a lot of half-truths from a lot of the retention basin people and a lot of the different municipalities. I will be reporting back to you guys on some of my findings that I'm going to be doing, and I will be getting back with you. But if you'd like to go tonight, it's at the current Food and Libations. We're going to be having a meeting there. It's going on right now, in fact. It started at 7 at for Save Lake St. Clair. And if you want to be part of that, I think it's a great thing to get involved with if you're planning on living for a long while and enjoying Harrison Township. You may live another 60 years. You may want to boat for another 60 years. You may want to fish another 60 years. So you may want to be a part of this. If you can't make it, you can also go to Save Lake St. Clair on Facebook. Okay, so you can go to SaveLakeStClair.org and look at the facts. Again, you don't have to donate money. Or you can go to Save Lake St. Clair on the Facebook page. And also there's going to be a meeting tonight, and that's at 24026 Jefferson, St. Clair Shores, Michigan, 48045. The phone number of the current Food and Libations, it's like a restaurant type thing. The phone number there is 586-773-7770. Again, 586-773-7770. And I'd like to see everybody come out and be part of this and keep their feet to the fire when it comes to protecting our lake. Again, we're getting a lot of half-truths and, a lot of smoke and mirrors. We're gonna plant flowers along the Clinton River, but if they're still dumping poop in it, you're gonna be paddle boating in poop, and you're gonna be zip lining across poop. So let's get together and let's clean up this lake and make these people accountable. And I hope to see you guys all there tonight at the current food and libations in St. Clair Shores. Again, on the northeast corner of 9 Mile and Jefferson. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. As a member of the Clinton River Public Advisory Committee, we participated in the grant process. A total of $20 million of Great Lakes, GLRI, Great Lakes Restoration Initiative funds were made available through the federal government. Unfortunately, those funds are not available for infrastructure improvements. So when we talk about combined sewer overflows, these are largely the result of combined sanitary and storm sewer systems throughout the Clinton River watershed. And when we talk about CSOs, combined sewer overflows, large water, rainwater events, unfortunately, that's what contributes to a lot of this. So the construction of larger retention basins for treatment and the separation of sanitary and storm sewers, those are all infrastructure improvements. The grant funds were not available for those kind of improvements. However, and I'm certainly not suggesting that combined sewer overflows are not a problem, but there are multiple problems that contribute to some of the pollution in the Clinton River and resulting in Lake St. Clair. So wherever those funds could be allocated to improve water quality throughout the Clinton River watershed, we voted for and tried to direct those funds toward those projects. But I believe a majority of the people, just based on the conversation we had at last week's meeting, a majority of the people that are involved in that public advisory committee definitely see the value in trying to reduce CSOs. So I certainly echo the comments of the last resident. It happened to be that a week or two ago, Mr. Huth gave us all a wonderful package of reading material, and this is related to a lawsuit whereby our former insurance carrier now believes that they don't need to provide the coverage that we believed that we were paying for the last several years. And there was a hearing slated for today, and so I wondered if Mr. Huth could give us an update on this case.
I can, you're correct. Just by way of quick background, this involves the matter of the case brought by Gino Surf against Shelby Township. Our insurer did step in and cover the cost for that and said, we'll take care of it, Township. We're going to tell you how it's going to be handled. But after they finished, they said, you know what, by the way, we spent more than we believe your coverage allowed for. And as of right now, you owe us $525,000. We believe that they're absolutely wrong on their interpretation of our coverage limit. It's $5 million, it's now $1 million, and you're right. That matter was scheduled for hearing today, but we went to a pre-hearing conference last Wednesday, and the court determined that the lawyer for the insurance company filed wrong paperwork. A document called a precipice was supposed to be filed. By the way, we filed ours. And so that caused the matter to be adjourned for a month. I initially thought this was good news because it freed me up to watch the Lions game last night. But I'd rather have been preparing for the case instead. But so at any rate, yes, it was scheduled for today. Now it's off and will be heard on October 26th.
I see. And what's entailed in our next? I mean, what is this next step then?
Judge Jennifer Faunce is hearing the matter at Circuit Court. She was a district court judge in Warren and now a circuit court judge, and so she'll have those briefs, and you've asked me to give you the rest of them by electronic version. We've done that. So she will ask questions, and I know be prepared, and likely make a decision on the 26th or shortly thereafter. And that, my view is that will be the end of the case at her level. She'll decide one way or the other. She's got everything. So I think it's going to be favorable.
So we're likely to hear something within a month, literally that hearing date, if not shortly afterward.
Very likely, yes.
And presumably only one of us can win.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a lot of times they say, oh, the judge will split the baby, but just can't do it with this one. We either one way or the other only. There's no middle ground.
And with a $500,000 decision, what do you think the likelihood is of appealing, or is that really dependent on the court's opinion?
Well, if she didn't rule in our favor, I'd say we should appeal it because we should win this case. So I guess we'll see how it all turns out.
All right, fair enough. Certainly, it's a significant liability.
Just a quick point of clarification. In your comments, you happen to mention Shelby Township, but it's in fact Harrison Township.
Did I say Shelby?
You did.
I had a similar case
Just for the audience listening.
I am sorry I had a similar case for Shelby and for Warren, so I apologize. Yes, Harrison Township.
You can send the bill.
Thank you, Mr.
If it's not favorable,
Yeah.
Shelby can figure it out.
Shelby can pay. I'm sorry about that.
I can also provide the board and residents with an update on the bridges for Huron Point subdivision. There were some delays in some infrastructure improvements to the Archer Bridge, and although the original estimate for completion was November 6th, it appears there may be as much as a 6-week delay in the completion of the Archer Bridge. The South Lakeshore Bridge, or the last of the bridges furthest from South River Road, is currently down to 1 lane. Based on the bridge engineer's review, and in addition, the Department of Roads hired I guess you might say an analyst or a bridge, a company that basically surveys bridges for structural deficiency. They're looking to reduce the Pardee Bridge and quite possibly the North Lakeshore Bridge also to 1 lane. So those bridges have definitely reached their life's expectancy. And although I know that human nature being what it is, and the potential that someone says, well, the Department of Roads are reducing the width of these bridges to 1 lane to somehow put pressure on the residents. I was personally happy to hear that they employed a third party to check out the structural integrity, and presumably the reputation of that third party as an engineering firm supersedes their desire to, somehow do what the Department of Roads might want them to say to satisfy their own needs. So we'll stay tuned, but definitely, and I think as we discussed, the idea behind reducing the bridges to 1 lane is that as long as the bridges are 2-lane bridges, at any given time, it might be just right, but you could have a bus and a large truck crossing the bridge at the same time, and the load on that total span is obviously twice as much as what it would be if you reduce the lane, travel lane to 1 lane. So I think primarily it's just to avoid overstressing the bridge and leading to premature failure. So we'll stay tuned, and I'll provide updates as I learn more. And then that's all I have. Any other comment?
I have one other, observation is the best way to say it. The playground equipment at Emmerich and South River seems to be quite a success. Every time I go by there, there's at least 10 to 15 people out there using the equipment. So thanks to everybody that was involved in that project, and it turned out to be a very nice project.
Although
Same with
today
Orland Park.
I drove by, and we might want to look at putting a bike rack out there, because there was like 6 bikes just laying on the ground. So.
Well, it depends. If it's kids' bikes, they're probably laying on the ground even with a bike
No,
rack.
it was moms and,
Oh, okay,
and
that's-
dads that were driving out there. So
Yeah, and there were some requests, and I know I'd circulated an email about possibly installing some sort of a fence or some structure to kind of contain that. Yeah, just so that if you get a little distracted and some of the younger ones tend to wander away, you don't want them to wander into the road, so to try to corral that. I don't think that's as big of an issue at Awney Park, but I can understand where Emmerich Park might have a greater need for that. So we're going to get estimates for fencing, and hopefully, if they're favorable, we'll bring those back to the board. Any other board comment? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, board.